I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who ends up on a motel room floor at 59 years old, counting the money I have left and wondering if it's enough to last until I die. But that's exactly where I found myself 8 months after my husband Robert passed away from lung cancer, leaving behind medical bills that swallowed our life savings whole. My name is Iolanthe Rothwell, and this is the story of how my own daughter threw me away like trash, and how I became the one person she should have never underestimated. If you're watching from somewhere warm and safe tonight, leave a comment below and tell me where you're from. And if this story resonates with you, please subscribe. You're going to want to see how this ends. The last good memory I have of my daughter Eleanor is from 3 years ago, at her wedding. I'm not talking about the ceremony itself, though it was beautiful, all white roses and string quartets at a vineyard outside Austin. No, the memory I hold on to is from the night before, when she came to my hotel room at midnight, still in her pajamas, and crawled into bed beside me like she used to when she was 7 and had nightmares. "Mom," she whispered in the dark, "what if I'm making a mistake?" I should have listened to that instinct. I should have asked her why she felt that way. But I was so desperate for her to be happy, so tired of being the widow everyone pitied, that I smoothed her hair and said, "Cold feet are normal, sweetheart. Julio loves you. You'll be fine." Julio Navarro, my son-in-law, the man who would eventually look me in the eye and tell me I was a financial burden he couldn't afford. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Robert died on a Tuesday in February. Lung cancer, stage 4, diagnosed too late. We'd been married 32 years. I cleaned the kitchen, did their laundry, scrubbed the bathroom until it gleamed. I thought if I could just be useful, if I could prove I wasn't a burden, everything would be okay. Julio barely acknowledged me. He'd nod when I said good morning, grunt when I asked if he wanted coffee. Eleanor was warmer but distracted, always on her phone, always rushing to work or yoga or brunch with friends. I told myself this was normal. They were young. They had lives. I was just in the way. The comments started small. "You left the light on in the bathroom again, Iolanthe. Electricity isn't free. Do you really need to run the dishwasher for 3 plates? We're on a budget, just so you know." Julio said these things casually, like he was making conversation. But his eyes had this coldness that made my stomach clench. Eleanor would shoot him a look, but she never said anything. She'd just change the subject or suddenly remember she had somewhere to be. Translation: "You're too old." By May, I'd burned through 47 job applications. I'd started lying about my age on resumes, shaving off 10 years, hoping no one would notice the gap. It didn't matter. No one wanted me. I could feel Julio's resentment growing like mold in a damp corner. He started forgetting to tell me when they were having friends over, so I'd walk into the living room in my bathrobe and everyone would stare. He'd make jokes about multi-generational households and boomerang parents that weren't really jokes at all. And Eleanor, she started avoiding eye contact. She'd come home from work and go straight to her room. When I'd knock and ask if she wanted dinner, she'd say she'd already eaten. I was disappearing in my own daughter's life. One evening in June, I found Julio alone in the kitchen drinking a beer. He looked at me like he'd been waiting. "Iolanthe, can we talk?" My heart started pounding. "Of course." He leaned against the counter, all casual menace. "How long do you think this is going to last?" "I'm still looking for work. You've been looking for 3 months. Face it. No one's hiring." He took a sip of beer. "I'm not trying to be an asshole, but Ellie and we're planning for our future. Kids, maybe. A house. We can't do that if we're supporting you." The words hit me like a slap. "I'm not asking you to support me. I have savings. For how long? A year? 2? Then what?" He set the beer down hard. "Look, I get that you're in a tough spot, but that's not our responsibility. I'm her mother, and she's my wife." We stared at each other. In his eyes, I saw the truth. I was the enemy, the obstacle between him and the life he wanted. "I'll figure something out," I whispered. "Yeah, you should." He walked away, leaving me alone in the kitchen with my hands shaking and my throat tight. It happened on a Friday night in late June. I'd spent all day making dinner, chicken pot pie from scratch, because I remembered it was Julio's favorite. I thought maybe if I could just remind them that I was useful, that I could contribute, that I wasn't just taking up space. Pathetic, right? Trying to buy love with baked goods. They came home at 7. Eleanor looked exhausted, her hair limp, dark circles under her eyes. Julio was on his 3rd beer before he even sat down. I served the pot pie with a salad and fresh rolls. "I hope you're hungry," I said, trying to sound cheerful. Julio didn't look up from his phone. Eleanor picked at her food. The silence was suffocating. Finally, Julio set his phone down and looked at me. Really looked at me, for the first time in weeks. "Iolanthe, we need to talk." Here it comes, I thought. My chest tightened. "This arrangement," he continued, "it's not working. We've been generous, more than generous, but we have our own future to think about." I set my fork down carefully. "I understand, I'm still looking." "You're 59, he cut in. "No one's hiring. Let's be realistic." He glanced at Eleanor, who was staring at her plate. "We can't keep doing this. We can't support 3 people on 1 salary. I have savings, for now. What happens when it runs out? You move in permanently? We take care of you until you're 70? 80? He shook his head. "That's not fair to us." My vision blurred. "Eleanor?" She didn't look up. "Eleanor," I said again, my voice cracking. She finally raised her eyes. They were wet, but her face was hard, resigned. Maybe it's better this way, Mom. For everyone." The room tilted. "Better for who?" I whispered. No answer. Julio stood up. "I think it's best if you find other arrangements. Soon." I looked at my daughter, my only child, the girl I'd sacrificed everything for, and waited for her to say something, to tell him he was wrong, to tell me I could stay. She said nothing. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking. "When?" "Tonight would be good," Julio said. Eleanor flinched. "Julio? What? You want to drag this out?" He turned back to me. "You're not a bad person, Iolanthe, but we're not a charity." I don't remember walking to the bedroom. I don't remember packing my suitcases, folding my clothes, leaving behind the box of keepsakes because I couldn't carry everything. I remember standing in the hallway with my 2 bags, looking at my daughter one last time. "I love you," I said. She covered her face with her hands. Julio opened the door. I walked out into the Texas heat, into the parking lot of Pinecrest Apartments, and stood there on the curb as the door clicked shut behind me. No one came after me. I called an Uber to a motel off I-35. The driver tried to make conversation, but I couldn't speak. My throat had closed around all the words I couldn't say. The motel room cost $39 a night. It smelled like cigarettes and bleach. The comforter had a burn hole in it. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened my bank account on my phone. $132,847. If I was careful, very, very careful, it might last 10 years, maybe 12. And then what? I lay back on the stained mattress and stared at the water-damaged ceiling, and for the first time since Robert died, I felt truly alone. Not lonely. Alone, like I'd been erased from the world. I sent Eleanor a text. "I love you. I understand." I watched the screen for an hour, waiting for the 3 dots that would mean she was typing. They never came. That night, I didn't cry. I was too numb for tears, but I made myself a promise in that dingy motel room, with sirens wailing outside, and my entire life reduced to 2 suitcases. I would survive this. Somehow. They say time heals all wounds. They're wrong. Time doesn't heal. It just teaches you how to function with the pain, how to smile at cashiers and answer, "I'm fine," when someone asks how you're doing, even though you're barely holding yourself together. 3 months after Eleanor and Julio threw me out, I was still in that motel room. Well, not that exact room. I'd moved to a slightly less depressing one down the hall after 2 weeks. This one had a working air conditioner and a window that actually opened. Progress, right? I'd used 2,150s of my savings. Every dollar felt like a countdown to nothing. I finally found work, if you can call it that. Data entry for a medical billing company, completely remote, $15 an hour, no benefits. I typed patient codes into spreadsheets for 8 hours a day, my eyes burning from the screen, my back aching from the motel desk chair I'd bought at Goodwill for $12. I made about $2,200 a month after taxes. Rent for a studio apartment in Austin started at $900. Add utilities, food, phone, internet for work, and I was looking at $1,400 minimum to survive. I was losing $200 a month just to exist. The math was simple. I had about 45 years of life left if I was lucky, and 10 years of money if I was careful. So I did what any desperate woman would do. I educated myself. Late at night after my data entry shift, I watched YouTube videos about real estate investing, financial independence, building passive income. I took notes in a spiral notebook like I was back in college. I learned terms like cash flow and cap rate and 1031 exchange. I wasn't planning anything. Not yet. I was just trying to feel like I had some control over my future. Like I wasn't just waiting to run out of money and die. I applied to 47 jobs in those 3 months. Receptionist positions, administrative roles, customer service, anything that didn't require recent experience or wouldn't immediately reject me for being overqualified. 43 rejection emails, 4 never responded. The loneliness was worse than the fear. I'd go entire days without speaking to another human being except to say thank you to the guy at the 7-Eleven where I bought my dinner, usually a rotisserie chicken that lasted 3 days. I texted Eleanor every week. Just small things. Hope you're doing well. Thinking of you. Happy birthday, sweetheart. I love you. Nothing. Radio silence. Until Thanksgiving. I was scrolling through Instagram, a particular form of self-torture, when I saw Eleanor's post. She was at her friend's Friendsgiving, smiling at the camera, wearing a loose sweater, and there it was, the unmistakable curve of a pregnant belly, 6 months along at least. I stared at that photo for 20 minutes, my chest so tight I thought I was having a heart attack. My daughter was pregnant. I was going to be a grandmother, and she hadn't told me. That night I cried for the first time since leaving their apartment. I cried so hard the woman in the next room pounded on the wall and told me to shut up. I called Eleanor the next morning. It went straight to voicemail. Hi, honey, I saw your post. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you. If you need anything at all, please call me. I love you. She never called back, but 3 days later I got a text. You left a box here. I can drop it off if you want. My heart leaped. She wanted to see me. Maybe this was her way of reaching out, of, where are you staying? I'll bring it by. I sent her the address of a coffee shop near my motel. Neutral territory. I didn't want her to see where I was living. We met on a gray Tuesday afternoon at a place called Bennu Coffee on Manor Road. I got there 20 minutes early, ordered a tea I couldn't afford, and sat at a corner table watching the door like a prisoner waiting for parole. When Eleanor walked in, I barely recognized her. She'd cut her hair short. She wore an oversized cardigan that hung off her frame, clearly trying to hide her belly, though it was obvious now that I was looking for it. Her face was pale, tired. She had dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite cover. She saw me and hesitated just for a second before walking over. Hi, Mom. Hi, sweetheart. I stood up, unsure if I should hug her. She made the decision for me by sitting down quickly, placing a cardboard box on the table between us like a barrier. Here's your stuff. Sorry it took so long. We've been busy. I can imagine. I looked at her belly. When are you due? She followed my gaze and her hand instinctively went to her stomach. February. Early February. That's wonderful, Ellie. Really. I'm so happy for you. She nodded but didn't smile. I have a doctor's appointment in 30 minutes, so I can't stay. Of course, I understand. I pulled the box toward me. Thank you for bringing this. An awkward silence stretched between us. I wanted to ask her 1,000 questions. Are you feeling okay? Is Julio excited? Have you picked out names? Can I be part of this? Instead, I said, "How are you?" "Fine. Tired." She stood up. "I should go." "Eleanor, wait." She was already walking toward the door. I sat there with that cardboard box, my tea going cold, and felt the door close between us all over again. I didn't open the box until I got back to the motel. Inside, my mother's wedding album, my own baby photos, Robert's Purple Heart from Vietnam. I didn't even realize I'd left that behind. Some old letters from college, a few pieces of my mother's costume jewelry, and at the very bottom, wrapped in a faded dish towel, a leather-bound notebook. I pulled it out carefully. The leather was worn soft, the edges frayed. The binding was coming loose. I opened to the first page and saw my mother's handwriting, that perfect Catholic school cursive she'd learned as a girl in the 1950s. Property of Eleanor Rothwell. Private, my mother, Eleanor. She'd died 12 years ago from a stroke. Quick, painless, the doctor said. She was 78. I'd gone through her things after she died, but I didn't remember this notebook. Maybe it had been in a box I'd never opened. Maybe I'd been too grief-stricken to look carefully. I made myself a cup of instant coffee. The motel had a little coffee maker, and settled onto the bed. The first entries were mundane. Weather, church activities, complaints about the price of milk. Then, dated June 15th, 1964, he came to the diner again today, Mr. Sterling. He always orders black coffee and pecan pie, always leaves exactly $2 for a $1.50 bill. Today, he left $50. I tried to give it back. He smiled and said, "For Iolanthe's future." How does he know her name? I've never introduced them. I frowned. I would have been 6 months old in June 1964. We were living in South Austin then, in a tiny apartment above a laundromat. My mother worked at the Skyline Diner on Congress Avenue. I kept reading. August 3rd, 1964. We met at the Driskill Hotel, room 412. I know it's wrong. I know. He's married. He has 3 children. But when he looks at me, I feel like I matter, like I'm not just a single mother barely scraping by. He asked about Iolanthe's father. I told him the truth. Thomas left when I told him I was pregnant. Hasn't sent a dime since. Mr. Sterling, Harold, he wants me to call him Harold, said, "Then let me be what she needs." My hand started shaking. Harold Sterling. The Harold Sterling. Sterling Energy and Petroleum. One of the biggest oil companies in Central Texas. I knew the name. Everyone in Austin did. The Sterling family was practically royalty. Philanthropists, socialites, their name on buildings and scholarships and hospital wings. I kept reading. Faster now. November 22nd, 1964. Harold gave me an envelope today. $5,000 in cash. For her college fund, he said. I cried right there in the hotel room. No one has ever cared about us like this. But how do I explain to a 6-month-old baby that a stranger is helping us? How do I explain it to myself? February 8th, 1965. I'm pregnant. I took 3 tests, all positive. Oh God. Oh God, what do I do? Harold doesn't know. He can't know. If his wife finds out, if anyone finds out, his business, his reputation, everything he's built, it would destroy him. And me? I'd be the whore who tried to trap a married man. Iolanthe would grow up knowing her mother was that woman. My vision blurred. I had to read that entry 3 times before it sank in. My mother was pregnant in 1965 with Harold Sterling's child, but I was born in 1964. I flipped ahead frantically. March 18th, 1965. I told him. We met at our usual place. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I'll take care of everything. You and the baby. I promise. But no one can know. No one can ever know." He's setting up a trust. Private. Through his lawyer. He says Iolanthe will be taken care of. But the baby. Our baby. The entry ended there. I turned the page. January 8th, 1966. Harold died yesterday. Heart attack. He was only 52. I read it in the newspaper. The funeral is Saturday at St. Mary's Cathedral. I can't go. I'm not allowed to grieve. The baby. I lost the baby in October. Miscarriage at 4 months. Maybe it's for the best. Maybe God knew this was wrong. I never told Harold before he died. So he died thinking I was carrying his child. I'll live with that guilt forever. I closed the journal and put my head in my hands. My mother had an affair with Harold Sterling. She got pregnant. She miscarried. But wait. I flipped to the end of the journal, looking for later entries. There, June 1982, 27 years old. I lied. I'm so sorry. If anyone ever reads this, I'm so sorry. I was terrified someone would find this journal, would use it against Harold's family, against me. So I lied. I didn't miscarry. I had a boy. Born May 12, 1965. I gave him up for adoption through Catholic Charities. Closed adoption. I don't know where he is. I don't know his name. Iolanthe has a half-brother she'll never meet, and she'll never know the truth about her father either. My heart stopped. Her father. I read it again. Her father. Not Thomas Whitfield, the deadbeat who'd abandoned my mother when she got pregnant. Harold Sterling was my father. The entry continued. Harold's lawyer, Benjamin Sawyer, knows everything. He has the documents, the trust, everything Harold set up before he died. If anything happens to me, if Iolanthe ever needs to know, Mr. Sawyer has instructions. His number, 214-555-0147. I pray she never needs to know. I pray she can live her life thinking she's just Eleanor Rothwell's daughter, not the bastard child of a married oil tycoon. But if she's reading this, if she needs it, Iolanthe, you were loved. You were never a mistake. You were loved. I dropped the journal. Harold James Sterling was my father. I wasn't just Iolanthe Rothwell, widow, unemployed data entry clerk, woman kicked out by her own daughter. I was Harold Sterling's daughter. I had a half-brother somewhere, and there was a lawyer in Dallas who'd been waiting for my call for 12 years. I called the number the next morning. My hands were shaking so badly I had to dial 3 times. It rang 4 times. Then, Sawyer residence. Hello, my name is Iolanthe Rothwell. I'm looking for Benjamin Sawyer. He was my mother's— One moment, please. A long pause, then an older man's voice, warm and slightly gravelly. Ms. Rothwell, I've been waiting for your call for a very long time. 2 days later, I was on a Greyhound bus to Dallas. I couldn't afford to fly, but I would have crawled if I had to. Benjamin Sawyer had something that belonged to me, something my father left behind. His office was in a quiet neighborhood in North Dallas, a small brick building with ivy growing up one side. The sign read, Sawyer and Associates, Est 1972. A receptionist, sweet woman in her 60s named Patricia, brought me to a wood-paneled office filled with law books and old photographs. Benjamin Sawyer was 78 years old, white-haired with kind blue eyes behind thick glasses. He stood when I entered and shook my hand with both of his. Ms. Rothwell, you look just like your mother. I didn't trust myself to speak, so I just nodded. He gestured to a leather chair. I sat. I imagine you have questions, he said. About 1,000. He smiled. Let me start with what I know. Your mother, Eleanor, worked at the Skyline Diner in Austin. Harold Sterling ate there every Tuesday. He was lonely. His marriage was not happy. He met your mother in 1963, when you were still a baby. You were not his biological child initially. I know. I read the journal. Ah, then you know about the affair, about the pregnancy. And the adoption, my half-brother. He nodded slowly. Daniel. That was the name she chose before giving him up. I don't know what name his adoptive parents gave him. Closed adoption. Sealed records. Can I find him? Perhaps. With time and resources. But that's not why I asked you to come. He pulled out a manila folder. This is what Harold left for you. For me? But he didn't even know I existed. On the contrary, he knew exactly who you were. You were Eleanor's daughter, the little girl he bought shoes for, helped send to school, watched grow up from afar. You might not be his biological child, but he loved you as one." My eyes filled with tears. Mr. Sawyer opened the folder and removed a letter. The paper was yellowed, the ink faded but still legible. This was written in 1988, shortly before Harold died. He was 52, heart disease. He knew the end was coming. He handed me the letter. "To Iolanthe Rothwell, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Your mother and I shared something beautiful and impossible. You were not born from my blood, but you were born from her courage and kindness, and I watched you grow from afar with more pride than I could ever show publicly. I couldn't claim you in life. My family, my business, the expectations of society, they would have crushed us all. But I can give you something in death: security. Through Mr. Sawyer, I've established a trust in your mother's name. The funds are yours. Use them to build a life I never could give you openly. You are smart, strong, and capable. I saw that even when you were a child. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You deserved better than a father who loved you in secret. I'm sorry I couldn't be more. Harold James Sterling." I read it 3 times before I could see through my tears. "There's more," Mr. Sawyer said gently. He slid documents across the desk. "The trust was funded with $250,000 in 1908. I've been managing it according to Harold's instructions. Conservative investments, steady growth. Today it's worth $1.97 million. The room tilted. "I'm sorry, what?" $1.97 million. After taxes and fees, approximately $1.85 million will be transferable to you. I couldn't breathe. "There's also this." He pulled out another document. Harold owned several properties in Austin. Most went to his estate, but one, his first office building, the place where Sterling Energy started, he kept separate. He transferred it to a shell company in 1987 with instructions that it be held for you. He showed me a property deed. Sterling Corner Office Plaza, East Austin, 2,400 square feet, mixed commercial use. Current value is approximately $800,000. It's been rented to various small businesses over the years. Generates about $6,000 per month in rental income, managed by a property firm in Austin. I stared at the documents. Nearly $2 million. A building. Passive income. Why didn't my mother tell me? I whispered. Fear, perhaps. Shame. Or maybe she thought she was protecting you. Mr. Sawyer leaned back. But you're here now, and this is yours. All of it. I stayed in Dallas for 2 days, signing papers, setting up accounts, meeting with Mr. Sawyer's financial advisor. On the Greyhound ride back to Austin, I stared out the window at the passing landscape and felt like I was watching my old life disappear behind me. I wasn't just Iolanthe Rothwell anymore. I was Harold Sterling's daughter. I had nearly $2 million. I owned property in Austin, and I knew exactly what to do with it. That night, back in my motel room, I opened my laptop and searched. Apartment buildings for sale, Austin. I scrolled through listings. Too expensive, too small, too far. Then I saw it. Pinecrest Apartments, East Austin. 18 units, foreclosure auction scheduled. Owner defaulted on property taxes. Starting bid, 1.2 M. My heart stopped. Pinecrest Apartments, 2847 Willow Street. The building where Eleanor and Julio lived. The building where they'd kicked me out with 2 suitcases and told me I was a burden they couldn't afford. I stared at the listing for a full minute. Then I picked up my phone and called Benjamin Sawyer. Mr. Sawyer, I need you to help me buy a building. Buying a building sounds simple when you say it fast. In reality, it took 8 weeks of paperwork, inspections, legal reviews, and sleepless nights, wondering if I was making the biggest mistake of my life. But Benjamin Sawyer didn't get to be Texas's most meticulous estate attorney by cutting corners. He walked me through every step. First, we created an LLC, Prairie Rose Holdings, named after my mother's favorite flower, the wild rose that grew in the empty lot behind our apartment when I was a kid. The LLC was registered to a business address in Dallas, with Mr. Sawyer listed as the agent. Completely legal, completely anonymous. There was no way to trace it back to me without a court order. Second, we attended the foreclosure auction. Well, Mr. Sawyer attended. I watched via Zoom from my motel room, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. The previous owner had defaulted on $180,000 in property taxes over 3 years. The building had fallen into disrepair. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to scare off most investors. Leaky roofs, outdated plumbing, a parking lot full of potholes. Starting bid, $1.2 million. There were 3 other bidders. Real estate investors with deep pockets looking for a flip opportunity. The bidding went 1.2 M, 1.25 M, 1.3 M, $1.32 M. Then Mr. Sawyer's voice, calm and firm. $135 million. Silence. Going once, going twice. Sold to Prairie Rose Holdings. I sat in that motel room with tears streaming down my face, staring at the screen. I owned the building. I owned the place that had witnessed my greatest humiliation. And Eleanor and Julio had no idea. The due diligence period was excruciating. I hired a property inspector, a structural engineer, and a real estate attorney named Jessica Brennan, a sharp woman in her 40s who'd built her practice representing small landlords. "You need to do this by the book," Jessica told me during our first meeting. "Texas tenant law is strict. You can't just kick people out or jack up rent overnight. Every move has to be documented and legal." "I don't want to kick anyone out," I said. "I just want to run a good building. Even if one of the tenants is family?" I'd told her the situation. Not all of it, not the part about being thrown out with 2 suitcases, but enough. "Especially if one of the tenants is family," I said. We reviewed every lease. Pinecrest had 18 units. 16 were occupied. Most tenants were paying market rate or close to it. Unit 12, Eleanor and Julio, was paying $1,150 a month for a 2-bedroom. Market rate for comparable units in East Austin? $1,800, sometimes $900. They'd been getting a deal under the previous owner, who'd been too overwhelmed to raise rents. "Their lease expires in 3 months, Jessica said. "When it does, you can offer a renewal at market rate. They can take it or leave." "What if they refuse to leave?" "Then we go through the eviction process. But let's not get ahead of ourselves." I nodded. "What do I do first?" "Send a change of ownership notice. It's required by law. Then start making improvements. Show the tenants you're investing in the property. When renewal time comes, they'll understand why the rent is going up." So that's what I did. I hired a property management company, Cooper Property Services, run by a retired Marine named David Cooper, who had a reputation for being fair but firm. I met with David in person. He was in his 60s, gray buzz cut, steady handshake. "I need someone who follows the law to the letter," I told him. "No shortcuts, no intimidation. Everything documented. That's how I operate, ma'am. And I need you to not ask questions about why I bought this particular building." He studied me for a moment. "Everyone's got their reasons. Long as we're legal, I don't need to know." I hired him on the spot. Over the next 3 months, we transformed Pinecrest Apartments. We repaired the roof, repainted the exterior a warm terracotta, fixed the potholes in the parking lot, installed LED lighting in the hallways, upgraded the security system, cameras at every entrance, well-lit walkways. We also fixed individual unit issues, leaky faucets, broken AC units, flickering lights, things the previous owner had ignored. Tenants noticed. I started getting emails through David. "Thank you for fixing my sink." The last owner never responded. "The new lighting makes me feel so much safer walking to my car at night. This place actually looks nice now." Unit 12 submitted a maintenance request in October. Kitchen cabinet doors falling off. David sent a handyman the next day. Julio sent a follow-up email. "About time someone fixed this place. When's rent going up?" David's response was professional. "Lease renewals will be sent 60 days before expiration." I imagined Julio reading that, trying to decode it, wondering who the new owner was, whether they'd raise his rent. Good. Let him wonder. The lease renewal letters went out in early November. Every tenant received the same professional notice. Dear valued resident, your current lease will expire on January 31st. We're pleased to offer you a renewal at the following rate. New monthly rent amount. This adjustment reflects current market conditions and the significant improvements made to the property. We value you as a tenant and hope you'll choose to stay. Please respond by December 15th. Sincerely, Prairie Rose Holdings, LLC. Most tenants accepted without complaint. A few grumbled but signed. One couple moved out. They'd been planning to buy a house anyway. Unit 12's letter was different only in the numbers. Current rent, $1,450. New rent, $1,800. That was it. Market rate, nothing excessive, nothing illegal. Julio's response came within an hour. The email to David was all caps. This is unacceptable. $350 increase? That's highway robbery. We've been model tenants. This is discrimination. David's response. Sir, your current rent is below market rate for comparable units. The increase brings you to market standard. This is not discrimination. It's business. I demand to speak to the owner. The owner prefers written communication. All concerns can be addressed through this email. Who is the owner? I have a right to know. Ownership information is available through public records at the Travis County Clerk's office. I could picture Julio at his computer, furious, searching online for Prairie Rose Holdings, finding nothing but a Dallas business address. 2 days later, Eleanor called me. I was in my new townhouse. I'd used some of the inheritance to buy a small 2-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, just mine, when my phone rang. I stared at her name on the screen for 5 rings before answering. Hello? Mom? Her voice was small, tentative. It's me. I know, sweetheart. Silence. I know we haven't talked, and I know that's my fault. But something's happening and I didn't know who else to call. My chest tightened. What's wrong? Is the baby okay? The baby's fine. I'm fine. It's just our rent. It's going up, a lot, and Julio's losing his mind. He's convinced someone's targeting us. With the baby coming in 2 months, we can't afford. She trailed off. I closed my eyes. How much is it going up? $350, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but we're already stretched thin. And Julio's been working overtime, and I can't work much longer because the pregnancy, and she stopped, took a breath. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be dumping this on you. I miss you. Those 3 words nearly broke me. I miss you too, Ellie. Do you think, could we maybe get coffee? Talk? I'd like that. Okay, good. She sounded relieved. I'll text you sometimes. She hung up before I could say anything else. I sat there holding the phone, my heart racing. She missed me. She wanted to see me, but she still didn't know. The building meeting was David's idea. We're doing a town hall, he said during our weekly call. Address questions about the improvements, the new security system, rent adjustments. Let people see that there's a real person behind the LLC. You want me to be there? My stomach dropped. I think it would help. Show them you're invested. You don't have to say much. Just be present. I thought about it for exactly 10 seconds. I'll be there. The meeting was scheduled for Wednesday, December 11th at 7 p.m. in the community room. I spent 3 hours getting ready. I wore a charcoal gray blazer I'd bought at a consignment store, paired with black slacks and low heels. I had my hair cut and styled professionally for the first time in 6 months, a sleek bob that made me look polished, put together. Expensive. I wore minimal makeup, a touch of mascara, neutral lipstick. Nothing dramatic. I looked like a landlord, a businesswoman, someone who belonged in a conference room, not begging for a place to sleep. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. Good. I arrived at Pinecrest at 6:45 p.m. and parked around the corner. I didn't want anyone to see me before the meeting started. At 6:58, I texted David. I'm here. Back entrance. Come through the maintenance door. I'll let you in." I walked through the parking lot I'd once stood in with 2 suitcases, trying not to cry. The new lighting made everything look different. Better. David met me at the door. "You ready?" "No." "That's normal," he smiled. "Just be yourself. Answer questions honestly. You haven't done anything wrong." I nodded, but my hands were shaking. The community room was full. I could hear voices through the door. 14 households had confirmed attendance, including Unit 12. "Let me introduce you," David said. "When I call your name, just walk in and stand at the front." "Okay." He opened the door and stepped inside. I stayed in the hallway listening. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. I know there have been a lot of changes these past few months, and we wanted to give you an opportunity to ask questions directly." David's voice was calm, professional. "Tonight I'm pleased to introduce the owner of Pinecrest Apartments, representing Prairie Rose Holdings, Ms. Iolanthe Rothwell." I stepped through the door. The room fell silent. Every head turned. And there, in the 3rd row, sitting next to Julio with her hands on her pregnant belly, was Eleanor. Our eyes met. Her mouth fell open. Julio's face went from confusion to recognition to rage in 3 seconds. I walked to the front of the room, my heels clicking on the tile floor, and turned to face them all. "Good evening," I said, my voice steady despite my hammering heart. "I know this is surprising for some of you. I want to assure you that my goal as owner is to maintain a safe, well-managed property while being fair to all tenants." Julio shot to his feet. "You?" His voice was loud, disbelieving. "You're the owner? This is insane. This is a conflict of interest. This is—" "Mr. Navarro," David said firmly. "Please hold your questions until—" "Don't Mr. Navarro me!" Julio pointed at me, his hand shaking. "We let you live with us. We helped you, and this is how you repay us? By jacking up our rent? By—" "You asked me to leave," I said quietly. The room went dead silent. "You told me I was an extra mouth you couldn't afford to feed. You gave me 2 hours to pack my belongings and leave. So I did." I looked at him directly. "Now I own this building, and I'm running it as a business. Your rent is being adjusted to market rate, the same rate I'm offering every tenant. Would you like to discuss your lease renewal in private or continue here?" Julio's face turned red. "This is revenge. This is petty, vindictive—" "No," I cut him off, my voice harder now. "Revenge would be evicting you illegally. Revenge would be making your life miserable. This is business. Your rent is $350 below market value. I'm correcting that. You can pay market rate, or you can move. Those are your options." "Mom!" Eleanor's voice thick with tears. I looked at her, really looked at her. 8 months pregnant, pale, exhausted, tears streaming down her face. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered. "You didn't answer my calls." The words hung in the air like smoke. An older woman in the front row spoke up. "I think this is between them. Can we move on to the security system questions?" David nodded gratefully. "Yes, let's—" But Julio wasn't done. "We're not paying, we're not signing anything, and we're not leaving. You can't force us." "Actually," Jessica Brennan said from the back of the room, I'd asked her to attend just in case, "if you refuse to sign a new lease or vacate, we'll file for eviction. Everything by the book. Everything legal." Julio turned to look at her, then back at me. "This isn't over." "Yes," I said quietly. "It is." He grabbed Eleanor's arm. "We're leaving." "Julio, wait! Now!" He pulled her toward the door. She looked back at me, her face crumpling, and I saw it. The realization that she'd married a man who controlled her, who scared her, who would drag her out of a room rather than let her speak. The door slammed behind them. The remaining tenants sat in stunned silence. Then the older woman in the front row started clapping. "Good for you, honey," she said. "That man's been rude to everyone in this building for 2 years. If he leaves, it'll be a blessing." A few others nodded. I realized I was shaking. "Any other questions?" David asked. For 2 weeks, nothing. Julio refused to respond to emails, refused to sign the lease, refused to communicate at all. Jessica prepared eviction paperwork. We can file after January 31st if they haven't vacated or signed, she said. But I didn't want it to come to that. Not because I cared about Julio, because of Eleanor. Then, on Christmas Eve, my doorbell rang at 9 p.m. I opened the door, and there she was, 9 months pregnant. No Julio, crying so hard she could barely breathe. "Mom," she sobbed, "can I come in?" I brought her inside, sat her on the couch, made her tea she didn't drink. She cried for 10 minutes straight. I didn't ask questions. I just sat beside her, close enough that she knew I was there, far enough that she didn't feel crowded. Finally, she spoke. "He's scaring me." My heart clenched. "Did he hurt you?" "No, not physically, but he punched a wall last night. Put a hole right through it. He's spiraling. He keeps saying you're out to get us, that you're ruining his life. He made me delete your number from my phone. He checks my texts. She stopped, swallowed hard. "I don't know what to do." "You leave him." She looked at me with wide, terrified eyes. "I can't. The baby deserves a mother who's safe, who's free. I don't know how to do this alone." "You're not alone." I took her hand. "Ellie, why didn't you stop him that night? When he kicked me out?" She looked down at our joined hands, tears dripping onto her swollen belly. "Because I was pregnant." I froze. "What?" "I found out 2 days before. I hadn't told anyone, not even Julio, and I was terrified." She looked up at me, her face twisted with guilt. "You know how Julio is. How controlling. He'd already talked about not being ready for kids, about needing to save money first, and I thought," her voice broke, "I thought if we kept you, if he had to support 3 people, he'd leave me. And I'd be pregnant and alone." She sobbed harder. "So I chose him. I chose him over you because I was scared. Because I thought I needed him more than I needed you. And I've hated myself every single day since." I pulled her into my arms. "Oh, sweetheart. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." We sat like that for a long time, her sobbing into my shoulder, me holding her like I used to when she was little and had nightmares. When she finally pulled back, I cupped her face in my hands. "Listen to me. I would have helped you. I would have sold everything I had. I would have lived on someone's couch. Anything but be thrown out like I didn't matter." "I know." "Do you? Because every text I sent, every message, every 'I love you,' you ignored them. That wasn't just weakness, Eleanor. That was cruel." She flinched but nodded. "I know. But I understand why you did it. Fear makes us small, makes us do things we never thought we would." I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and came back with a key. "What's this?" she asked. "Guest room, upstairs. It's yours, for as long as you need." "Mom, I can't." "Yes, you can. But I need you to understand something." I sat back down. "I'm not doing this so you can go back to him. I'm not raising your baby while you stay with a man who scares you. You have to choose, not him or me, him or yourself." She stared at the key. "What if I can't do it? What if I'm not strong enough?" "You are. You're my daughter." I smiled. "You're braver than you think." She took the key. Eleanor moved in the next day while Julio was at work. She had the baby on February the 3rd. A girl, 7 pounds 3 ounces, perfect. She named her Eleanor, after my mother. Julio tried to reconcile. Sent flowers, left voicemails, showed up at my door twice. Eleanor said no. She filed for separation in March. Legal custody arrangement by April. Julio pays child support, sees his daughter every other weekend. It's civil, but cold. Eleanor got a job doing graphic design from home. She's in therapy. She's healing. We live together, but we have boundaries. Separate spaces. Separate lives that intersect gently. Some nights, I hold baby Eleanor on the porch swing while Eleanor makes dinner inside, and I think about how far I've come. From the woman sobbing in a motel room, counting her last dollars, to this. Last week, Eleanor asked me, "Do you forgive me?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "I'm working on it," I said honestly. That's fair. But I love you, and I'm proud of you. For what? For choosing yourself, she smiled. It was the first real smile I'd seen from her in months. Julio signed a new lease at Unit 12 at market rate. He's still there. We never speak. Sometimes I drive past Pinecrest and remember the woman I used to be, the one who stood in that parking lot with 2 suitcases, feeling erased from the world. That woman is gone. In her place is someone stronger, someone who learned that power doesn't come from money or property or revenge. It comes from knowing your worth and never ever forgetting it again.